Okay, dear students, now we are going to start our question number 2. This part is the continuation of the solution of October-November 2018 paper 4 for physics. So now let's start the question number 2. In the question number 2, they're saying that figure 2.1 shows a uniform plank AB of the length 2.0 meter suspended from two ropes X and Y. You can see in the diagram here, this is suspended. Okay, now you know the principle of the moment. What is the formula of the moment? Moment equal to force multiply or the weight multiply by the perpendicular distance from the pivot. Now let's start the question. Part A, state in term of P, they're talking about this rope here or this point. It means talking about the force here, that calculate in terms of P the moment of the force P about B. So for that you have to write just like the formula. If you multiply the force by the distance from here, because they said about B is here, this part. So you will take this distance, that's 1.5 meter, and you multiply the force, which is not given right now. So you will just write this relationship here. Now we will move to the second part. They're saying calculate the moment of the moment of W about P. Now what is the formula for moment? Moment equals to force multiply the perpendicular distance from the pivot. From the pivot, you can add this part here. Okay, now if you see the distance, you can see here, that is the from here, if you talk about, that is 1 meter. Okay, now see the force, that is 210, and if you talk about this distance here, and if you subtract this one, so you will get the 1 meter. So the answer is 210 Newton meter. Then they're talking about the force at P. So if you talk about the force at P, so for that you need two things. What is that? Number one, you need the distance and you need the moment. Now for example, here P is not given here. If you see this part, so it means you have to find this one here, and then you multiply the distance, and then you have the value 210, which the moment we already found in this part here. So if you will use this one, the answer will be 140 Newton. If you go for the same thing, they are talking about the force at Q. So you know that the moment is, if you talk about the moment, you say there is two laws of equilibrium. One law says that the clockwise movement should be equal to anti-clockwise movement, or you can say total clockwise movement should be equal to total anti-clockwise movement. Here, then the second part of that condition for equilibrium, what is that? The sum of the forces in one direction should be equal to the sum of the force in other direction. So here if you see, so there are two forces upwards, that's P and Q, and one force is downward, that is W. So it means that P plus Q equal to this force. If you add P and Q here, P and Q, so it will be equal to this force. So the same relationship we used here, if you see that P plus Q equal to 210. So P already you have found here, so use that value, and Q will be 70 Newton. So it's very simple, and this is the question number 2.